Hi guys, it's Treacle here from FordGuides.co.uk. Today we're going to look at hardwiring in a dashcam to a 2017 Mondeo. This is the 5th generation of the Mondeo, starting from 2015 onwards. So the first thing we're going to do is actually move the passenger seat back to give as much access into the passenger footwell as possible, as that is where the fuse box is. Remove the mat so that you can access the fuse box cover, which just pulls away like so. This model Mondeo has micro 2 blade fuses fitted to it. We are going to be using fuse 23, the 10 amp, which is a delayed accessory power. Fuse 23 is the 10 amp in the bottom left hand corner as you look at the fuse board. That's where we're going to be putting our fuse tap and then running the cable up to the windscreen. So the next step is to carefully remove this piece of plastic up here. In this end you've got the ambient lighting LED plastic tubes. Be very careful not to pull from there, and on this side you've got some wiring. If you can, get your fingers in up the top, move right over to where the plugs are and then pull down. Put a light back on that for you and do the same on the other side. Find where the plug is, get the finger as close to it as you can and then pull it downwards. Don't worry so much about disconnecting the wiring in this case, unless you feel that it's going to get in your way. Although the dash cams are normally powered by USB, that power needs to be 5 volts, so you need to use the proper hard wiring kit, as it will have a transformer in it to convert down to the 5 volts required. This will come with a black wire, which you can crimp a ring or a spade connector onto to attach it to an earthing point, and the other end will be a red wire with a bare plug, which you can use the micro 2 blade add a fuse connection and just crimp it on, or in this case you can solder it, as heat shrink is supplied as well. Once you have crimped on your add a fuse connection, you need to make sure you have enough cable free to make it up to the top of your windscreen. I've left some bundled up because I know I've got enough there. You also need to make sure you have a suitable place for your little transformer box to sit. It won't get particularly hot. So having pulled off that other piece of trim, we can now access the fuse board through the top and get our hand round. So we need to take the add a fuse connector, feed it in behind and around. You may find it tricky to do one-handed. Once you've got it in, you also need to make sure you've got a suitable place to mount your earth point. If you look along here, you've got 2 bolts, and we can pull one of the nuts off, put the crimp in either the ring or the spade here, and just do the nut back up again for an earth, and that'll be fine. We'll leave the power till last, but we will pull fuse 23, put it into the spare socket on there, and then put that in place. Now we need to find a way to get the rest of the cable up to the top of the windscreen. If you open the glove box and reach into the bottom corner of this side panel and give it a little pull. If you've got trim removal tools, that'll make this easier, and if you've got 2 hands as well. You can either leave that tucked up out of the way, or you can unplug it. Just pull the red lever up, which reveals another black push pin, and then out it comes. We're going to feed our cable up through here. We're going to come across behind this panel We're going to go up inside of this trim and then across at the top and up behind the headlining. The only other panel we need to loosen is this A-pillar cover. Find the top of it. And you need to be very careful because inside here there is a string which is part of the curtain airbag assembly. So you need to be very careful not to pull that. So if we put our finger in between the headlining and the A-pillar cover and pull inside the car, you don't need to make much space, and that will be enough to run the cable how we want to run it. Now grab the USB end of your plug. I would wrap it across the top of that metal bar. That one, but up in between the two panels in there, and you'll see it come out up here. From there we can just pull it free and create as much slack as we possibly can. But we can pull this trim away from the white trim and get the cable to go there. You do get the cable all the way up to the top of the trim, you need to look inside and make sure you are as far to the right hand side as possible so as to not interrupt any of the airbag assemblies. And routing, once you are in, wrap it around the front, and then on that point replace your trim. You'll come back later to clear any dirty marks off if your hands are dirty. Although I'm probably only going to run to here. There's a suitable gap between the lining and the windscreen, where you can hide the cable without too much hassle. So to recap, we've run the cable from the fuse box up and over that metal bar, through the dash, up the side trim, across here, and up and across and round to the front. Then we've gone up inside the head lining, and I've actually gone back and double back to myself because I've got excess cable. The next step would be to connect up the cables down here. So we're going to do that next. We've got the earth that we're going to connect to these nuts, and then we've got the power that we're going to connect up to fuse 23. So to mount the earth, we're going to get a 10mm socket or spanner and just loosen off one of the nuts. Once you have the nut either off if you're fitting a whole ring, or loosened significantly, in my case, pop the spade connector in and then do it back up again. No need to over tighten it. Next thing we want to do is very carefully remove the fuse. A small pair of needle nose pliers or anything similar, if it's a bit stiff, will help you out here. It's a bit tricky on camera, so I'm going to put the camera down for a second. With the fuse removed, it needs to enter into the inside of the 4 sets of holes with the required fuse for your dash cam in the other house to set. So with the fuse now fitted, Both fuses now fitted to the adder fuse connector. We can connect the pins of the connector into the original fuse board hole. It isn't easy, but you'll now see that my adder fuse connection is securely connected to that fuse port. Now at this stage I wouldn't bother putting anything else back together. I would get hold of your dash cam, plug it in, and make sure when you turn on the ignition you get power. The best way to test that your power is now working fine is to get the USB lead, plug it into your dash cam, and switch on the vehicle's ignition. After a few seconds, the dash cam should power up. This camera is quite slow to start, but that received power straight away. When you switch off the vehicle's ignition, the camera will stay live and will keep recording until either the vehicle accessory timeout has exceeded, which I believe is around 75 minutes, or, camera's still on by the way, or until a door is opened, when it will then turn off. So now that we know our power source works, we need to finish running the cable neatly and deciding on a position for the dash cam. So to power up the dash cam with the ignition and position it where you think is suitable, and just fine tune it until you find a place where you want it. When deciding where to mount the camera, you have to take into consideration its view. There is obviously no good, as we're covered by this unit. Fortunately in the Mondeo we do have a large unit under our rear view mirror. However, I think for me, about there, if you can, mount the GPS receiver on these black dots, as apparently you get less interference if you do so. So for me that's going to work quite well. I've been given the area a quick clean, allow it to fully dry. While mounting, it's probably easier to have it powered up and decide where you want it. My camera's just developed a memory error, that's why it's beeping. Just need to format the memory card. And obviously make sure you have enough room to remove it from the mounting mechanism. And then just tuck the rest of the cable, power cable, up into the lining and hide any excess. Switch off your ignition, open the door, and off goes the camera. Now you just need to finish the job off, you just need to replace any pieces of trim you've removed. So that is this side trim here from the glove box. So we grab the wire, plug the connector back in, and then push the red tab down. Get it the right way up. Feed the cable back through the opening. Again, this is one of those that's not easy one-handed. They're just spring clips. So line it up and push on firmly. If you also removed the trim with the ambient light in it, here you can see the ambient light tube, so you can see what not to damage. If of course you remove this trim, it clips on the same way. The reusable clips will hold it on perfectly fine if you did not damage them during the removal process. The only other piece of trim is of course the fuse box lid, which you line up the tabs that way around and then push it down and it's closed. I'm going to do that off camera as I need to tidy up some of the cables.